everybody, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. In this video we're going to be speaking about the JP Australia iSUPs and really looking at their constructions, because there's quite a few constructions that they offer in their ranges and it can be a little bit confusing to understand what the differences are and really what construction is best for you, because all these constructions do have different price points and they will suit different paddlers. So JP Australia have got a good range of inflatable paddleboards and they have kept the same sizes in most of their boards for the last 2 or 3 years. They do have the Venus range in there this year, which are 2 very popular size boards in 5 inches thick, which will offer a bit more performance and better paddling for the lighter paddlers. And they also have a good range of boards in the super light that are a very cheap competitive price point. We first saw the JP boards back in October last year and we were very impressed with the build quality, the styling of the boards and the materials that they're putting on the boards, which we'll go over right now. JP basically offer 3 types of constructions, but there are some crossovers that make it look like they offer a bit more with their super light board as well. The main constructions are the LE, the LE 3DS and the SE 3DS. So let's go over all the materials that these boards have got in common and then let's move our way up to the more expensive boards that give you a bit more top-end performance. So all the boards are made of an internal core of drop stitch, and that's a polyester 500D drop stitch. Then completing the board and making it airtight, you have an internal PVC rail band, and all the boards except the top end SE construction are a double layer PVC wrapped around the outer shell of the board. JP weld the seams of their boards on the LE constructions and the SE constructions, but they don't on the super light construction. Welding seams is basically where they heat the 2 PVC layers up that they're sticking together and they melt them into one layer. It gives you a much better bond, much more durable, and it definitely reduces the risk of any air escaping over many years. So you can see this is where the super light constructions, it hasn't got the welded technology, it's still got 2 layers of PVC, but pretty much it's a fairly stripped back board from this point on. The LE construction is fairly similar to the super light LE construction, except remember it's got the welded seams on the rails. Going up from there you've got the LE 3DS and you've got the SE 3DS. The big difference here is this 3DS rail, this 3D stringer that JP have placed around the top and bottom and the sides of the board. It really wraps around the rails of the board and does add extra stiffness. And a big thing we want to stress, and we were very impressed when we first saw these boards back in October, is that this fabric, this 3DS stringer fabric that's going around the rail is incredibly tough and it feels very hard to touch. It really is going to handle knocks and scrapes down your board very well, and I really could say it's probably one of the toughest looking rails on an iSUP that we've seen to date. So that's the big difference there. Remember, the LE 3DS, that is just the 3D rail stringer that's around the side of the board. The basic LE hasn't got that system, but the construction between the LE and the 3DS LE are exactly the same. It's just the rail system that makes a difference. Going up from there, then you have the SE, the Superior Edition. Now JP Australia call it their triple layer technology. Basically, remember, this is triple layer, but it's 2 layers of PVC with a layer of polyester fabric in between those 2 layers, which gives you the 3 layers. Gives the board a bit more stiffness, but obviously it's going to put a bit more weight on the board as well, which is always a compromise between stiffness and weight. Maybe if you're a lighter paddler, you don't necessarily need that stiffness, which is why the super light and the Venus isn't finished off in the SE construction. Other features that the LE 3DS and the SE 3DS have and the other LE and the super light don't is the tail rail edge runner at the back. This is definitely another one of the standout features for us on these JP Australia boards. Really like the way that they've incorporated the rail system on the back of the board, and I really like the way that they've put the 3DS type material over the top of that rail, and it really does look and feel extremely well finished, and we are generally very impressed with how they've come around doing that. It's a very simple touch, but it really makes a difference to the end overall look of the product and how we think it paddles on the water. When it comes to the overall packages of the boards, the bags and the pumps, there are some bigger differences between the super light range here than the other range. All of the bags are well made and they look really good. Again, really good graphics, colorways that match the boards. You're going to get the Venus, the LE 3DS and the SE 3DS, the top of the range board. They have backpack straps and they're padded. The SE, it's got more padding around the back there and it's just generally a little bit more refined. But the LE and the LE 3DS both have very nice backpacks that you're going to be happy to walk long distances. The Superlight hasn't got backpack straps. It's very much more like a carry holdall, still very good quality, but it's more stripped back than the other bags. The pumps you get with all the LE The LE3DS, the SE3DS are Bravo good quality double action pumps. You get a slightly more basic pump that comes with the super light. It's still adequate pumping the board up, and of course all these boards are recommended only to 15 psi, so you don't have to get a huge amount of air into these boards to get you on the water and get you back paddling. Now, when it comes to how stiff these boards are, we did do a deflection test for all of these boards, and it's also very interesting because JP say the 3D stringer here that are on the LE3DS and the SE3DS is 30% stiffer than not having the stringer down the sides of the rails of the board. We did our flexion test like we do always. We put them boards on a gap of 1.5 meters apart, and we put 75 kilograms of weight in the center, and then we measure how much that board bends or deflects. All the boards were pumped up to 15 psi, and they're all tested on this deflection back to back within a space of about 2 minutes. Now, before we look at the deflection test results, remember there's a big difference between a 5-inch thick board like these two. The LE3DS is a 5-inch thick board, the one we have down there, and the LE Venus is a 5-inch thick board. Remember, a 5-inch thick board gives you a much more connected feeling to the water. I personally really like paddling on 5-inch thick boards. I'm not a particularly heavy paddler, but I feel a little bit more in control of my paddling, and I feel a little bit more at one with paddleboarding than if I'm on a 6-inch thick board. 6-inch thick boards are a little bit higher. Obviously, they will be stiffer, and they will be stiffer at less psi pressure, but you generally feel a little bit higher out of the water, and you can say maybe a little bit more detached from your paddling feeling. But the 6-inch thick boards are really great for heavier weights, putting more on the front, maybe going touring, so you will get a much stiffer board, and then obviously it will be better for performance as well. So now let's look at the two 5-inch thick boards. We've got the Venus here. This is in the LE, the light edition. This is 10.6 by 32, pumped up to 15 psi. And then again, we've got basically the same board, but in the LE3DS version down here, 10.6 by 32, 5 inches thick, and pumped up to 15 psi. First off, the drop on the Venus, it dropped 23 millimeters under 15 psi with 75 kilograms of weight on the center. The LE3DS dropped 21 millimeters, exactly the same board, exactly the same weight, and at the same psi. Shows you how much stiffer that board is compared to the LE. It's not quite 30%, which is what JP recommend on their website, but then it all depends on how you actually do your deflection test and how you actually measure your bend. We're measuring it under 2 fixed points, 1.5 meters apart. If you maybe measured it over the whole length of the board with a fixed point on either end, the deflection may be slightly different. So it is a guide, that 30%, but we do generally believe obviously having the 3DS stringer down the rails of the board does give you a lot more stiffness to the basic boards here. So now let's look at the 6-inch thick board. The first off, the super light, the cheapest board in the JP range, pumped up to 15 psi, the same weight in the center. This dropped 17 millimeters, which shows you how much stiffer it is, even compared to a better quality 5-inch thick board. It's way stiffer at 21, that one. This is at 17, so it's a stiffer board. Shows you that thickness, how much the stiffness increases. If we go to the SE 3DS stringer, which is the top of the range, same pressure, same amount of weight on there, but remember this is what JP call the triple layer construction, and it's got the 3DS rail. That only dropped 13 millimeters, so that's a big difference between a super light to the SE 3DS. You can really see same thickness, same volume, same PSI. The big difference is in the materials that you put on your board. 13 millimeters in the general scale of other boards on the market, top end boards, that is up there with some of the stiffest boards on the market. Remember, the stiffest boards we've ever tested are sitting around the 8, 7 millimeters in drop, and the most flexible boards in the market are sitting around sort of 26, 27. So it's a really stiff board, and obviously what JP are putting on these boards does increase the stiffness, and it will give you a better performance, especially if you're a more top end paddler, racing, touring, really trying to paddle faster or catch some waves. So you can clearly see by our deflection test, by different thicknesses and different materials that go on the board, really does make a difference to the overall board stiffness. So really, what board should you be looking at? What construction should you be looking at? It comes down to a few things. And you might have heard us say it in other videos, how much are you going to go paddleboarding? Are you really committed to the sport? Or are you just starting into it and you're not sure if you really want to pay top money? Well, the boards like the super lights, they've got a great range of boards and they are at a very competitive price point. Remember, this is still from a main player, a big brand, a brand you can go to, demo shops, you get good warranty, 2-year warranties on all these boards. So this is a very good price point, SUP, the super light range, to get you into paddleboarding for the first time and even dabble with it with the kids, and if you don't want to do it, you can sell it on in a year's time and you'll get good resale because it's from JP. If you're a little bit more committed and you think you want to really get into the sport a bit more, or maybe you're looking to buy another iSUP, then you are going to be looking at more the LE 3DS or the LE, I would say. They're not loads more money than the Super Light, but they're enough to justify it, definitely, if you're going to be paddling more often. The Venus range of boards is gearing up to more of the lighter paddlers and maybe the females with the graphics. I personally really like the colorways that JP are bought on here, and I'd be quite happy to paddle it. If I wanted a bit more performance, I would still look at the 5-inch thick board, but I would probably definitely go for the LE 3DS. But if you do want a board for a purpose, as in you want to paddle distance, you want to do some fitness, you want to get into racing, you want to get into touring, you really want to do something with your paddleboard, then really you should be looking at the SE 3DS. The build quality, the finish, the styling, I really love it. The whole package, the bag and the pump, really well suited to those more performance or people wanting more performance out of their paddleboarding. In summary, for us, we are very impressed with the JP Australia range of boards and really impressed with the materials that they're putting on their boards, especially the materials around the 3DS, the rails here. Very hard wearing, and it does increase the stiffness. The big thumbs up has got to be the tail edge runner at the back there that's on the 3DS boards. It is going to give you so much better glide, so much less drag when you're paddling through the water, and it really is a well finished off product. Couple that with some nice bag and a good quality pump from a main brand, there is some really nice boards in there for a lot of different price points in the JP Australia range for 2020. I really hope that video's helped you. If you have any questions and comments, please email us, write it on a YouTube comment, and we'll happily get back to you. Remember, if you're looking to buy or try these boards, check out our trusted retailer page. And if you've had a good experience with a retailer, please let us know. We're trying to track down the world's best retailers. Until next time, we'll see you on SUPboardermag.com or on YouTube. Thanks very much.